Hey everyone, and welcome. Dominic here with Smart Catholics Mastermind, and I'm excited to welcome Dave DiNuzzo. Welcome, Dave. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me, and it's an honor and a privilege.
Wonderful. I've been wanting to have you for a while here, Dave. Dave is the founder of True Manhood. He is a husband and father of four, a deacon candidate, and a theology teacher. We're going to get to all of that in just a second and hear about Dave's story. But first, Smart Catholics Mastermind is a live series to meet the minds and hearts of our creators, the leaders and the hosts in our community. They devote their time and talent to mastering their vocation so that you can live a fuller life faster. So, Dave, before talking about what you do at True Manhood, I want to take people perhaps a little back and understand a little more about who you are and kind of what makes you tick. Can you share with us a little story about yourself? Was there a moment in your life where you began to realize, I can't stay the same, I have to do something different? What was that story, that moment?
For me, it wasn't really a moment. It was a kind of a correlation of a life of bad choices and a life of being wayward, leaving the church and being just engulfed in the culture and doing everything that men were told that we should do, and really seeking out prestige, seeking out power, just being money hungry, and also just using and abusing women. And that stemmed really from early exposure to pornography as a 10-year-old and a life of addiction with that scourge. So as I worked to come back to the church by the grace of God, I had incredible friends when I was a student at Benedictine College. I had great influence from so many amazing men in my life. And so to jump forward just a little bit, I was in a relationship with my now wife, Catherine. We just celebrated 15 years earlier in the month. And for me, early on in our marriage, so I had been working through all of this past, all of this muddy, yucky stuff in my life, and living a fully faithful Catholic life. And I was a young married guy, and I had two kids very, very early on. And I didn't know how to be a husband. I didn't know, how do you actually do this? What does it mean to actually be a man? Yeah. And so I was looking around for answers, for resources, for help. And it just kept coming back and kept coming up in prayer and in conversation, and certainly at the prompting of my wife to stop complaining and do something about it. And so I began to blog. It was when really blogging was just blossoming as a method for evangelization. Mm-hmm. So this is 2007, 2008 timeframe. And out of that, True Manhood was desired. Everybody around the world was desiring it. And I was reaching people, reaching especially young men, something that had resonated with them that they hadn't seen before. And True Manhood just kind of spiraled into what God wanted it. And it's looked different over the now 13 years. Mm-hmm. But the idea for me was, how do I either, one, help a man not go where I went,
right?
Not struggle with pornography, not deal with the pressures of the world, not to not deal with them, but how does he conquer this? How does he become a saint? So one, how to help a man never go to that place, and really this is the reality, how do I help a man who is there up and out of that life, just like I was helped up and out in college? So that's really the impetus. Mm-hmm. The desire was placed on my heart, and I just responded. True Manhood has taken me all over the world, and I've been very blessed to be able to write and speak, lead retreats, and now move into this next phase of our life, which is deacon formation. So,
brilliant. So tell us about. I'm curious how does being a deacon and your formation in that, how does that affect or perhaps inspire what you're doing with True Manhood? And tell us now what you are. What is True Manhood? What can people get from it? What is it you do with it? where are you going with it?
Sure. So True Manhood, as it stands right now, is a mixture of resources that are online, but also events. They might be retreats. They might be talks that I give, conferences that I go to, or one-on-one. I'd love to help people one-on-one as much as, whatever they need, really. Certainly accountability for men, but also things like helping parents to protect their kids from the internet, from pornography, from the culture, teaching theology of the body, and things like that. So True Manhood is a resource for people. I do have some downloads, and the next phase of what we're going to be moving into is online content. I'm a little behind the ball because the stuff has been needed for a long time, but certainly in our current world, this is how stuff is being consumed. So certainly helping men dealing with, and not just men, but certainly men with addiction to pornography, with issues maybe in their marriage, but also just not living a life of vice and learning to live a life of virtue. So that's really the three main areas. As we work to fight pornography, we fight what I call cultural manliness, the idea that the world is selling to males of what a man is. And right now it's completely confused. The world struggles to even know what side of its mouth it's speaking out of, and obviously confuses the whole topic. And then teaching throughout all of that how a man can live virtue, which is really the key to the Christian life in general. That's what it comes down to, is being like Christ, who is perfectly virtuous. So in what True Manhood offers, and this moving into being a deacon, I think they are they're so compatible. A deacon, and I love this idea. I've felt the call for a long time, and we've had the opportunity to have a cohort in our diocese. I live in the Diocese of Salina in Kansas. There are more Catholic cows than there are Catholic people. I figure if if the farmer is Catholic, his cows are Catholic. So here, it's just so compatible. I've learned that the deacon is to be in persona Christi servi, in the person of Christ the servant. And when it comes down to it, men, we must serve. We must be just like Jesus. He says, I have come not to be served, but to serve. This is the call of all men, whether you're a priest or religious, whether you are a father, whether you're a young man, wherever you are. This is what virtue leads to, is gift of self, and that's love itself. So if we can give from all that we are, all who we are, we'll be doing the right thing. So I think it's very compatible. Certainly the idea of the culture and what they're selling to males as what is manly is wrong. Right. It's sinful. It's going to get in the way of actual service. And the scourge of pornography, it's sin. We have to call it what it is, and it will destroy our soul. And it's, I believe, the devil's number one trick to steal souls.
Agreed. Well, it's like a gateway drug for eroding an authentic masculinity.
For sure.
I would agree with that. Well, cool. I'm now curious to get your take on this question. It's a fun one that I ask all of the guests on this show. In the Smart Catholics community, one of the words that we're kind of anchoring our mission around is the idea of being a faith first responder. And it is a bit of a funny word. It comes from the medical dictionary, but in the same way that you have a medical first responder who shows up when someone's had an accident, or a fireman who dives into a burning building to help somebody, I believe that we have this same call to be a frontier, a front line for the Catholic thing to friends and family and so on. So the church ministers to us, and the church is this big, battlefield hospital, as the Holy Fathers described it. So that then makes us the first responders. And I'm curious, what comes to your mind? Like, how would you describe that or talk talk about that. And then how are you doing that? What would be your recommendations?
Well, I love this question because I actually am a first responder. I didn't tell you this before.
Oh, take it away.
I currently serve on our county's rescue squad, and we show up to any emergency that's needed. The fire department shows up for fires. We show up for car wrecks or accidents. It's rural here, so there's a lot of rural needs, anything in the water, just when somebody needs something. Right. So the EMTs, the police, the firefighters, the rescue squad, we all descend upon the accident when we're called. Mm-hmm. So, and I have been a firefighter in the past. So, that building, that wreck, that trauma is chaos until order is established. Mm-hmm. And the first responders are trained to go in and assess the situation and deal with what needs to be done for the betterment of the victim, anybody who's there and around, as well as their physical, the physical surroundings. So if it's a building, the firefighters are trying to save that property. Mm-hmm. If, whatever the scenario is. So we take all these and we put it into this analogy. And I love this analogy because people are living in chaos. Yeah. People are struggling to know right from wrong. They're struggling to know goodness when they see it. Our world is so confusing. So people are living in chaos. What we're not doing as a people is dialing Faith 911. We're not running to the switchboard. We're not running to the dispatcher, mm-hmm. who can then give us what we need. And what we need is certainly grace. I mean, number one, we are saved by grace. We have to have grace in our life. Mm-hmm. So if we're not running to our first responders, if we're not inviting them in, then we're going to just continually have mass chaos, and we're going to be victims. And we're not called to be victims. Mm-hmm. We are called to live in God's joy. We're called to abide in him, to have fullness of life, and to have the hope of eternal life. So I think in that sense, the first responder idea is fantastic. For those of us who are baptized, that's like basic level, because the world is not baptized. They are not living in their baptismal promises. Mm-hmm. All those folks around us, it could be a neighbor, it could be a fellow employee, or a fellow worker, or one of our employees. For me as a teacher, it could be a student that comes into my classroom. Mm-hmm. I teach at a Catholic school and most of the kids are Catholic, but that doesn't mean that they're not in chaos. So the ability to speak into that, to preach the gospel, mm-hmm. to live charity. These are amazing things. It's like you could get the rescue truck out and we have all kinds of tools. Mm-hmm. We have all kinds of ways to deal with the chaos. Mm-hmm. And you have to know your tools. That's why we train. You have to know how the truck works and the sirens and the lights, mm-hmm. and how to maneuver. You have to know your gear. So for those of us who are the first responders, we have to be in prayer, mm-hmm. deep mental prayer, time in the sacraments, regular penance, reception of the Eucharist. We have to be in prayer with our Father. And without that, we're not going to be effective. It's just like if a first responder shows up and they're brand new, day one, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, what the protocols, the etiquette is. Yeah,
exactly. So, yes, we are in a world of chaos. There are crises around us. People are in emergency situations. Mm-hmm. So as first responders, this should fire us up. I love this stuff. I mean, this is what I live for. I live to serve. I live to share the gospel. Whatever you want, Father, whatever your will is, that's what I want. So I love this analogy. So thanks for asking.
Awesome. I want to go a whole lot longer with you on this, and maybe we will. Because I love the experience that you bring. I mean, a lot of us others can bring sort of mental and spiritual and sort of life experience, but actually the burning building experience brings a different edge that I'd love to see more on. So maybe we'll come back to that. In our last kind of minute here, if you had 1 minute to share the most important message of your heart to the world, what would you say, Dave?
Well, my most important message is that we have to submit our lives to Christ. We have to be transformed in his love. I almost died from COVID. I was in the hospital ICU for 25 days. It almost took my life. When I was there in that hospital, I had nothing I could do except trust in the Sacred Heart. Mm-hmm. And that Sacred Heart is the same heart that gives us his divine mercy. And that is the same heart that we gnaw on, that we consume in the Eucharist with that intimacy with Christ. Mm-hmm. So if you're away from Christ, if you know people who are away from Christ, the answer is Christ. Flat out. That's it. Go to him, beg for his mother's intercession for us, for the saints like Saint Joseph. They are our guides. And be close to the church. We have so much turmoil and issues and confusion. Just stay close to Christ. That's what he's always called us to.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dave. It was really good to have you. And thanks to everybody who joined us live. And then for those who are catching the replay afterwards, if you did enjoy this episode, please share it with your one friend that you think would really enjoy, like to see it, and then come and regroup with us in the free Catholic community on smartcatholics.com. We're free of trolls and toxicity and ads. We are faithful to the Holy Father, Pope Francis, and the Church, and we are committed to a culture of kindness and learning. Does that sound like you? Well, then come on over and join us. Thanks again. Thanks again to you, Dave, and God bless everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.